There goes button to the forefront. Mission launch called HTV-6, I believe. Took the H-IIB.
30 seconds to launch. Again, the solid rocket boosters and that core stage, the first stage containing liquid fuel, will carry the rocket through the first 1 minute 54 seconds of its launch.
Now, this launch went up in about a week or two now.
Everything's still on track, 10 seconds to launch. Getting a good view of the engine underneath, now igniting.
That's the roll piece, I presume.
All systems are go.
Lift off the H-IIB.
0 and liftoff. The
For its size,
HTV-8
it
and the
goes up
H-IIB
surprisingly
rocket
quickly.
carrying its way 4 tons of cargo to the International Space Station. Lighting up the night sky over southern Japan. Everything looking good through the flight so far. Those 4 strap-on solid rocket boosters will carry the vehicle through the first 1 minute 54 seconds of the launch.
But for those of you who know even basic Japanese, you probably know the Shima, or Jima, from Planeswalker. Yes, Tanagashi. But this is an island. Very Osumi Island, apparently. It's part of the Kagoshima Prefecture.
Now 1 minute into the flight.
See, it's a bit set of Honshu, which is the main island of Japan. Yeah, I'm trying. I really hope that's just like sparks from the SRBs flying out. And not
20 more
people
seconds
getting
before
apart.
those solid rocket boosters burn out. Everything looking good so far. The vehicle itself heading towards the southeast to get in the right phasing to meet up with the International Space Station.
Waiting for SRB burnout. Seems they're burning out now.
You can see the solid rocket boosters beginning to burn out. We should see them separate in pairs coming up here in just a few seconds.
It is just off the Japanese coast, pretty much. Okay, there's
There's the first pair of solid rocket boosters separating.
There's the next two, I believe.
And the second pair. Now that core stage will continue to burn until 5 minutes 47 seconds into the flight, burning liquid fuel, liquid hydrogen, and liquid oxygen.
The Japanese do have a launch site.
Good confirmation of booster separation. 2 minutes 47 seconds into the flight. 3 minutes left of this first stage.
That's something for small rocks like the Epsilon, which is known for being entirely solid propellant. Like, I think you can fit a don't get another stage. It's more like a just a monopropellant powered thing to adjust satellite orbits. Sorry, my throat decided to just bugger off. Launch should take about 15 minutes in total. That's in from liftoff to separation of the HTV.
3 minutes 47 seconds into the flight. Everything looking good so far. That first stage will continue to burn for another 2 minutes. 4 minutes, 47 seconds into the flight, 1 minute left of this stage. Everything continued to be on track throughout the flight of the HTV today and the H-IIB rocket, performing nominally. Again, 5 minutes, 47 seconds into the flight will be the cutoff of that first stage. It'll enter into a 7-second coast period before the first and second stage separates. Another 7 seconds until the second stage is ignited. Everything continuing to be on track. 5 minutes, 27 seconds into the flight, 20 more seconds of the first stage burning.
There we go, burnout.
Switching to animation right after the burnout of that first stage.
Separation. Quite honest, this is pretty hilarious because this is literally like something I would record with quality.
And confirmation that that first stage did successfully cut off. Second stage burning now. First and second stages separated. This second stage will burn for well over 8 minutes, 8 minutes 19 seconds. It'll be just over 15 minutes until the HTV itself is inserted into a good orbit.
Yeah, after launch.
Coming up on 7 minutes into the flight, everything looking good so far. Eight minutes into the flight, HTV continuing on a nominal track heading towards the southeast to get into the right phasing to meet up with the International Space Station, which is just about to cross over into an orbital nighttime as it crosses over the Mediterranean Sea towards the western coast of Greece. Meanwhile, the HTV heading on a southeasterly course over the Pacific Ocean to get into a good orbit. Again, it's about 15 minutes from the time of liftoff to the time of orbital insertion, and the HTV separates from the launch vehicle.
Also, the H2 rockets made by Mitsubishi. I believe I don't know if some of the earlier, there are variants with only 2 boosters, and some with only a single engine on the first stage. I'll look that up now. It's always interesting when you type in something like H-IIB and you don't get... Not only do you not get what you were looking for, like you get this, the
10 minutes into the flight, that second stage continuing to burn as expected. Everything on track as the HTV makes its way through its ascent milestones. There are only a few milestones left. That second stage burns for well over 8 minutes total. We're now 10 minutes into the flight. We could expect a cutoff about 14 minutes 20 seconds into the flight. It'll enter into a short coast period. That coast lasting just about 51 seconds before there's physical separation between the HTV and the second stage of the H-2B rocket.
H1. To do that really. The original H2 had slightly longer, like a different first stage and different boosters. The H2A the H2A has an inline first stage with the SRBs. And the H2B has
11 minutes, 30 seconds into the flight. HTV-8 and the second stage of the vehicle performing nominally. Less than 3 minutes until the second stage cuts off and the vehicle enters a short coast period.
So, it's a bit complicated, but somewhat.
Again, the phasing here gets it into an orbit to catch up with the ultimate destination of HTV-8, the International Space Station, where it will arrive on Saturday morning, capture scheduled for 6:15 a.m. Central Time. The International Space Station itself crossing over into an orbital nighttime now just north of the Black Sea over the southern border of Ukraine.
Yeah, pretty much the only thing these things have ever launched are HTVs. So, yeah. It looks like it's about another 2 and a bit minutes until separation of the HTV. The HTV actually stands for the H2 transfer vehicle. It's interesting.
"13 minutes, 20 seconds into the flight. Everything looking good so far for that second stage. Expect a cutoff just under a minute from now. Again, after that cutoff, it'll enter into a short coast period before the physical separation between the HTV and the second stage.
But then the coast period is forced to prevent something like what happened on one of the early they don't want to repeat of one of the Falcon 1s where they changed the cooling systems and there was a bit of residual thrust, which is the stages colliding.
14 minutes, 10 seconds into the flight. Should expect a cutoff here in just a few seconds.
Now, brief coast phase before that thing gets separating and begins its journey to the IS.
Second stage has cut off. Now just waiting for confirmation of physical separation between the HTV and the second stage.
There we go, separation. In reality, wouldn't be chucked off that quickly.
And confirmation of separation. Getting a look at HTV control over in Tsukuba, Japan. A good flight of the vehicle. Looking back at the launch pad where the H-IIB rocket took off just 15 minutes ago. HTV mission control over in Tsukuba, Japan will take over the flight from here, now that the HTV has separated from the launch vehicle. There's HTV control over in Tsukuba, Japan. Just recently we saw the Launch Control Center, that's the Takasaki Range Control Center over in Tanegashima. This HTV control center over in Tsukuba, Japan, just northeast of Tokyo. It'll be these teams here that'll see through the flight of HTV over the next few days to rendezvous at the station early Saturday morning. Now that HTV has physically separated, just waiting for confirmation that the vehicle itself is drawing power in a good configuration after separation. And HTV mission control will take over from there.
Well, there goes those launches for HTV-8 and for H-IIB. I'm Bottom 25. Goodbye.